The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Now broadcasting from the Right to Offend Media Studios in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, art, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report Live with Sam Whitfield.
But giving offense is good. In fact, it's essential.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Whitfield Report podcast. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, recording here at Right to Offend Media Studios. And speaking of Right to Offend Media, we actually have, today's guest is a little bit different because usually I'm interviewing an author or someone from outside the business. But our guest for today is actually an in-house guest, so to speak, for Right to Offend Media. Not in-house as in right next to me, because that would be a little, would be a little weird for us to, be on separate webcams, but, in different rooms. I mean, I guess, but that would be, why do that? But my next guest is Tim, who actually is from my former state of Colorado, my home state. Tim also has an award show named after him, the Timmies, or the Timmies.
The Timmers, yeah. That'd probably be the best.
Okay. Without further ado, Tim, welcome to the show. How are you doing, Sarah?
Thank you for letting me be on. It's a pleasure. So I appreciate it. I'm doing really well. I just woke up like a little bit before we were talking, before the recording. I just got up from a nap. Really long day at work, so I'm pretty glad. So can't really say very much of anything.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and yeah, doing a podcast right after naps. I mean, I've done that too, and it can kind of be, it can be a bitch at times. But
yeah, that's why there's coffee.
Yep, thank God for coffee. So, anyway, though, Tim, I have to ask. So we've had, obviously everyone here knows, Max, Mortheous, and Joe. You guys all host Bits and Bones. Shmooly, or Smuggly as we call him, he'll show up every once in a while. But Tim, I'm curious to know, like, how'd you find out about, Max and Right to Offend Media in the first place? Because, you go back further with Right to Offend Media than I do.
Yes. So actually, it's kind of funny how it worked out. So I watched a lot of a podcaster and a former libertarian kind of individual by the name of Christopher Cantwell. He had this idea of libertarian brutalism. It was quite offensive, and also very much kind of just being what it is, kind of not very, I guess it's, how do I say it the best way possible? It just not very quite politically correct, and I really do enjoy that kind of stuff. I'm not very much of a person who likes to go ahead and be offensive, but I like offensive jokes. I like, the idea of
Right.
just being offensive. I enjoy it, and it's not something that I like to go ahead and do on my day to day, but like, because it's just my personality. But I like offensive things. So we
Yeah.
started it was like a little bit right after the show, and it was like a little bit right after the show, and then we just kind of open up an open panel on Google Hangouts, and people started coming in, and I think it was like every week on Fridays, and then I remember correctly, we had an individual by the name of, I think it was KK. Actually, Max came in and started just talking shit, and that's how he came to go ahead and hang out with us. And then as time has gone by, he was talking about his understanding of like his political stance. I think one of the things that really is kind of crazy about the whole thing is that I was always on and off because I had to go ahead and do some other stuff, or I
Yeah.
had my family issues and problems, so I had to deal with that first. But it was always kind of cool to go ahead and come back on and off. But I usually talk to them just because it was a lot of fun. Um, it
Yeah. I
Go ahead.
mean, so the other thing too is like, so like I know of Christopher Cantwell, like I'm somewhat familiar with him, but like he's pretty infamous now for being the crying Nazi, which
Which is kind of funny. It's
which
incredible.
which I recently found out, or not recent, but I found out. I'm like, oh, Max was like, oh yeah, that was us that did that. So
Yep.
he had such like a look of like glee,
Uh,
when he mentioned that.
yeah, he's a twit. I didn't really. There was a lot of things that happened, and I'm just glad that stuff's out of it. It was kind of funny to see the falling out. It really
Yeah.
was.
Now, when you say you like edgy humor, like I imagine um, would you say you're like more of like, a Medicare type of like edgy humor guy, or like,
Medicare. I mean, I
yeah,
just like a Medicare kind of stuff. I've always loved Chan culture. Well, and I think that's also another thing that really, in my formation of understanding the world, I guess I would say it was basically, the basic standard YouTube 4chan kind of culture. And then I also was in like a oh, what was it? I was in Twitter, and like I was from 2011, 2010, and that was
oh
kind of a weird precipice of
yeah,
from 2008, and then like going over to Occupy Wall Street, which is kind of wild to me, in my own personal opinion, that like the reason why I got like into a political awakening and actually got more formulated into like the internet was because of the National Defense Authorization Act. And it was it was an anonymous video talking about that law, and that like this is completely insane and crazy that our own government would be able to go ahead and take away the rights of citizens and
yeah,
be completely fine with that. And come to find out, they still have the stuff in the books. They still have a lot more of stuff in the book. They're just trying to go ahead and reinforce it. um and it did kind of terrify me as a person. It's like, are these people willing to go ahead and do that to our own citizens? Are you willing to do that to your own nation? Like, I thought we had actual laws. I thought we had our Bill of Rights. It's like, yeah, we do, up until you don't.
yeah. So it's interesting that you say that you kind of came from the 2011, like 2010, 2011 Twitter world, because that's essentially like when I got my start in politics, as well, was around that time. mainly, I that was like mainly when Twitter, I wouldn't say it was a shit show, but like basically like anyone and everyone was talking to each other.
Honestly,
And
it was way better. Like I'm not even gonna kid you. I loved regular old Twitter, and like
yeah,
as much as X is cool and everything else like that, old cool badass. You can go ahead and have like the background images and everything else like that, and then also you get to go ahead and make your own colors and everything else like that with your own web page, and also look at your own home tabs. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I loved seeing like the ats that had like I love red. I'm not gonna lie. Granted, I know that I'm in black and white, but I have like a bunch of red and stuff, and I enjoy it. I I I I enjoy red and then also like black and a little bit of stuff like that. I just like customizing my own kind of thing, and that was so cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, I love I kind of come from Twitter. Like I used to follow Andrew Breitbart when he was alive, and obviously anyone who knows my lore, was knows that like Breitbart was probably like my biggest influence politically, second only to Rush Limbaugh. But like one of the things I loved about Andrew in particular was the fact that he would, as a ship host, and no one really knew what the term was at the time, but like as a ship host, he would just like retweet the most like vile stuff that people were saying about him. And
That's pretty
like
good.
people would freak out about it and be like, why are you retweeting that? And he would be like, hey, I want to show, I want to, show these people like, I want to show people like what these people actually think of me. And you know, so
Yeah.
and yeah, it was a wild time. And you mentioned Occupy Wall Street, like that whole thing was wild too, because I mean Occupy Wall Street may have started off, with like good intentions, but it quickly spiraled into basically Antifa, which is
hmm
now, you know, what it is. And I mean it's all a bunch of like the most ironic thing is it's a bunch of like uber rich white kids rallying against capitalism. So
Yep. It's
basically,
it's the ironies of ironies, I would say.
yeah,
Um, but like I said, in my formative years, before I even did it, I guess I would say that I didn't realize what it was as a kid to understand like the world. I became a libertarian, and I became like an ANCAP guy. And matter of fact, my Twitter is ANCAPdolic, so there was like so much stuff there that like in my formative years I tried to go ahead and like understand like the world, and I was still developing. It was
yeah,
trying to trying to look at this world through a very different kind of lens as you kind of form up into much more of a person that is going to be looking at and interacting with the world. It was definitely kind of interesting.
yeah. Well, I mean, how, so if I may ask, like, are you? How old are you right now? Would you
Oh,
say?
I'd probably say, well, I would say 28. Like I was born in 97,
Oh,
and
okay. So you're actually 2 years younger than I am. Then I just turned 30. Yeah, the reason I asked that is you and I have like very similar like kind of like I guess development politically too, because like I never went ANCAP, but I remember like when I was a teenager, like I got very much into like Ron Paul libertarianism in like 2010 to 2012. I was really hoping that Ron Paul would be the guy, to like take out on Obama, either him or Herman Cain. We got Mitt Romney, which was, like,
What a real bummer.
yeah, that was probably like the most like uninteresting like election, you know, season ever.
It
Um,
was. Go ahead.
and then like, going so like at this point, like, were you had you already been like politically active before like Trump, you know, like
Uh,
ran for?
I guess I would say that I was very much exploring those ideas, and
Yeah,
I didn't really per se care, but I did kind of care, like in the understanding of it. I guess I wouldn't say like I wanted to. I didn't campaign for anything. I just didn't really care, and actually, it's kind of funny. When Max is like, "Dude, this guy is going to be president," we all laughed at him. We straight up laughed at him. It was like, "Really, this guy? You're gonna be kidding me." He's just a big rich guy. What do you mean? And then talking to him about it, and like understanding of what he was trying to like his like understanding of why he could be a good president. I thought it would be so far fetched, and to actually see that Trump actually did what he did, and actually see
yeah.
what good outcomes he did have, especially around from 2016 to 2020. It is pretty crazy to see that, especially within those formative like 4 years.
Well, what was so interesting to me is so like I remember when I was a kid. This is going back to like 2004 or something like that, right? Like I remember like I always saw Trump on television as a kid,
Mm.
whether it be with The Apprentice or
Yep.
something like that. So whenever he would say I'm thinking about running for president, the 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 automatic assumption was, oh, this guy is just, he's just doing it for a publicity stunt to promote his, latest
Show.
book or TV show or, what have you. And so when he first announced that he was running in 2016, I was like, oh, here we go again. And I was that way for a long time, up until I I think I was either in my freshman or no, I was in my yeah, I would have been in my freshman year of college when the campaign first started. Because I was in my sophomore year when he actually ran. So, or no, when he actually like, won against Hillary. But anyway, I remember now I was in college at like in 2015 to 2016, and I was somewhat like political, but I wasn't as vocal as I was like in my teen years, because I was like, I'm on a college campus, and I don't want to upset the apple cart too much, especially like even being in Florida. I'm still on a college campus, so there are
Mm.
bound to be like a lot more liberals.
Yeah.
But I remember like at one point I was having lunch with a friend, and he asked me about the election, and he asked me like who I was going to vote for, and point like I think at that point like I was supporting Marco Rubio or something, because he was because he was in Florida, and I had just moved here to Florida, so but
Yeah.
I was like I wasn't going to say anything, and I was kind of like, I don't know, I haven't really made up my mind yet, but who are you going to vote for? Who do you think you're going to vote for? And this guy I knew who was Hispanic too, by the way, was like, I I think I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. And I kind of looked at him, and I'm like, really? Why? And he was like, well, he's like, Trump's a businessman and he's an outsider. He's been in business, for his entire life. People know who he is from The Apprentice and whatnot, and he doesn't he doesn't talk bullshit. You might not like what he says, but he's a pretty
He's a
straight
straight shooter.
shooter.
Yep.
And so I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then I heard and then I kept hearing this from like other college students, none of whom, as far as I knew, had like ever been interested in politics either before. That was the interesting thing. Was I was like, okay, so do you follow politics or anything? No, we just we just kind of like what this Trump guy is saying.
I think it's
So
really I think it's really quite interesting that you say that because I know a lot of people that were like that in 2016. I
yeah.
know a lot of people. It was pretty insane. He
Oh
came
yeah.
over. He came over here to my local place. I don't really care to go ahead and dox myself though. He came over to Grand Junction and going down to the airport was absolutely nutty and insane because I saw from one side of the street to the other, like I think about a mile out, there were so many people and crowds and people gathering. It was absolutely nutty and crazy to go ahead and see such a huge thing, especially for him to be part of that and to look at that. I actually met a lot of cool people up there, and especially some counter protesters and stuff like that. But it was really
Yeah.
awesome to see like average normal people to go ahead and look at like here's some of the things that I have concerns about. Here's the things that we really need to look into. It was kind of cool to see to see what um uh, like right there normal people to look at them and like here's the ideas that we would really like to go ahead and talk about and to um I guess pretty much change because I mean everybody was looking for hope and change, especially with Obama. I mean,
Yeah.
but there really wasn't. It was a lot of more of the same. It wasn't changing for nothing. There's nothing that was changing, especially for the past 8 years, and especially with the Bush administration. I remember there were so many people that were like so anti-Bush, and then we had 8 years of the same things with Obama. And I remember talking about this as a kid, and this is also probably something I should talk about. Um, when I was a little bit younger, especially, I had an opportunity to go ahead and do some radio myself, actual formative radio, and actually do some writings and stuff like that about like drone strikes in other countries, and also like privacy, and also about like cybersecurity. It was just kind of cool to do, and just like talking
Yeah.
about like rights and everything else like that as a when I was a kid. Um, I think it's astonishing that like the 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 culmination of like having Trump do this and then seeing everybody else in the little group that we had, it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too, is like you and I both started in, political commentary. I was 14 and, like, you were super young too, which I think is, something that like very few people can say that, too, regarding like any interest. So, I mean, I've been doing this for, darn near 20 years at this point. It's pretty amazing.
It's pretty,
Um
but I think it was around that same time, around where I was coming at. So yeah, definitely.
yeah. I mean, I think too, regarding like things with Obama and whatnot, I think I think like one of the most glaring things I remember like picking up on like when I didn't notice it like right away when I was in high school, but it was like more towards college. I started to notice like all these people who were like criticizing Bush for, for like bombing, civilians and whatnot. Like they would criticize Bush for like Iraq and Afghanistan, and they might have been right to do so, but when Obama did it, they like had no problem with it whatsoever. Or
Bombings
when
in Yemen, bombings in like Syria. There was always so many things that happened, and people just whatever. We'll just turn a blind eye. I think the only people
yeah,
that I heard actually even talk about it was fringe left wing groups, and then also like honestly, fringe left wingers. Like I would say from Russia Today. That's the only people that talked about it. Nobody else.
yeah, I actually funny story about that. Like I actually at one point like someone from RT actually like reached out to me to like be like a contributor or something, and I was like, I'm just gonna delete this email because it's like from Russia, and b like, yeah, again it's Russia, so I'm not interested in it. But like, but yeah, like I started to notice that like all these, like I said, all these liberals who were like criticizing Bush were like giving Obama free passes. And then the other thing I noticed too was like, I know this is kind of jumping around a bit, but like going to 2014 and kind of Gamergate, what I started to notice too was like all my friends were like, there's bias in the media. And I'm like, well, of course there is. How have you not? And like that, the thing that kind of amazed me about Gamergate was like, I'm was like, I understand that it was like a wake up call for a lot of people, but like to me and to you, like I was like, well, yeah. How do you not know that there's like intense bias in the media? And like, oh, you think this is limited to just video games? Oh, that's cute. That's like an adorable mindset, because no, it's rampant everywhere. Just seeing like, I guess, normal, I once like normal friends get like red pilled overnight
Mm-hmm.
was like really fun.
It is. It really is, and especially the effects of how that happened, especially with the legacy media, and then also with especially on the internet and stuff, and how that affected and grew, honestly, to a very terrible cancer that we still have to go ahead and deal with. Is
Yeah.
quite interesting because whether we like it or not, we still have the effects going from 2014 onwards for about 11 years.
Oh yeah. I mean, this cancer isn't going to go away overnight. And we're still dealing with some of that. Um, so Trump gets into office, I guess, in 2016. And what did you think of Trump, I guess, V1?
I I don't really know, honestly. Like I was following it, but I was kind of off of it. I'm like, you know what? He won. That's awesome. I'm really quite glad. I want to go ahead and see what he can do. And like my year one analysis was there's a lot more other stuff actually going on. Like honestly, for me, because
Yeah.
I was this was like my first formative year of working nights. I had a very like transformative kind of like it was a very transformative year in my life. Aside from just dealing with so I was working nights. I was feeling like I need to go ahead and get my life back to it. Like honestly, much more better. I need to become a better version of myself. There were I talk to other people and just wanting to be a better man in general. So it was definitely different, but I was very far off while talking to the people that I knew.
Right.
It was like around 2018, 2019. I kind of left them, like I kind of left the Max in the group for differing uh, some different opinions. It's just like I've got to go ahead and focus on my life. I've got to be a better man. So while I was looking at through like Trump, I really do think that he did a hell of a good job. Like from like year one onwards, I do have some criticisms on year four. However, I don't think he did a bad job.
Right. Well, it's so it was kind of like he won, and then you didn't pay much attention afterward.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay, I mean, I think that's fair, and to be fair, I think that's what a lot of people, myself included, did. I mean, because like I was busy with college, you know, at the time too, and so my first initial thing was like, yay, he won. Hillary's not gonna ever be president, so that's
Yep.
all.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me. And unfortunately, I think that kind of bit us in the ass, especially kind of with COVID. I mean, I don't know about you, but like COVID, I mean, I've talked to this. I think it fucked with everyone, but like I was depressed for sure. And like I know none of my relatives died because of COVID, but like my grandmother, she had dementia like beforehand, but it wasn't like really, it wasn't too bad, and I think COVID just like exacerbated it and made it worse. And then like the same year, like my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and she's better off now. Thank God she survived. But it was to kind of like 2020 was like everything at once, and then the 4 years under Biden. I mean, it's kind of interesting because around that time was kind of when I met you and Max and everyone. At least I think that was.
From what I remember, because I actually lived, well, this is also something kind of interesting for me, is that I lived in a very, like, I lived with my dad for a little bit, and I was like, you know what, it's time to go ahead and get out. It's time for me to go ahead and leave. It's time for me to leave the nest and then try to go ahead and make it on my own, which, thank God, I struggle, but it's not as bad of struggling. Um, I left the nest. I said, all right, you know what? I'm getting a new apartment. I'm getting everything else. And then I just randomly thought, you know what? I haven't talked to the guys in a long time. And it was around 20, yeah, so from 2021 to 2022. I talked to the guys and were like, hey, you guys want to go ahead and do something? And we just talked crap. That's like, we just talked shop. And he's like, all right, I have this idea, Tim, and I want you to go ahead and be part of it. And it's like, okay, cool. We can do something like that. And we did the open chat for like a little bit. I wasn't really good at it. However, it was about 2, 3 months later, we got to go ahead and interact with you. So that was in 2022.
Interesting. Yeah, and that'll happen because like my old co-host of the Whitfield Report left, and then that was also when I ran into Johnny Fox, which, by the way, like Max, I love the guy, but Max has the tendency to like find like the weirdest and most obscure people on the internet sometimes, and just like and just like antagonize them or
I think his presence is just very quite antagonistic for a lot of people.
yeah. Well,
Which,
I mean he is a little giant. I mean, I would be a little, I would be a little weirded out by him too. Sometimes if I didn't know him so well. But yeah, I mean, and then like and then like meeting you and meeting Shmuley and everything else. So
Yeah. He,
which by the way, like people think that Shmuley has autism, and I keep like trying to tell people, I'm like, no, Shmuley does not have autism. He might want you to think he has autism at times, but he doesn't. So
no comment. No comment. Um, so yeah, I mean that was kind of crazy to kind of see the culmination of you going ahead and doing your thing. I fell off because honestly, I'm not good at what I do. However, I really like to bounce off with other people. It's one of the things I really do appreciate. I cannot do a show for shit, especially alone. But that comes with practice, and honestly, I think that's much more discipline that I don't want to deal with. But bouncing off with other people, talking to other people, I always kind of really enjoyed that the most.
yeah, I think doing a show on your own, it's definitely something that you could develop, and like you could develop a skill of doing that, but it does take, it takes some. It's not that it takes a lot of work; it just takes time. And like if you're working nights, I know that your schedule can be a bit hectic. That can be really hard to do at times. So
Well, I will say short video, like long form video content, is not really a good thing, especially with it. However, and a lot of people are really, really enjoying the short video content. I think a lot of people that actually like that 1 minute, 30 second kind of like idea that somebody can actually put out. I think that's really good, especially for people who are just looking to deal with something like that. Just to go ahead and
yeah,
bring out a point, which is really, really good. And I think that's a lot good for better people, and you can see that it blew up very, very fast and very, very quickly. So, for people who want to go ahead and do something a little bit more, they can. And I probably will not do long form or short form video content. I just like having conversations.
yeah. The problem, I mean, I enjoy watching short form content, but the problem is like when you try to like condense something down into short form, it never is like short form.
No.
So what I like to do is like try and like find a long form and then like shrink and then find like the best points and like shrink it down into a bite-sized clip if possible. Um, so I think that's interesting. Now, you mentioned that you're in Colorado, and I'm originally from Colorado, so I have to ask, what is your read on politics in Colorado so far?
Well, like it's I I don't know. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty like the local. Like I don't really care for my local at the moment. I mean, there's gonna be some city council things, at least for me to deal with, but for the state level, I I think it's really really sad that we actually have like taxpayer. Well, we have taxpayer funded like I, for the longest time, I was pretty like much more pro choice up until I got honestly convicted about the idea of it, and it's like, oh man, I really don't like this, especially with my buddy, um, and actually having to learn about like them actually trying to take away semi-automatic weapons, especially over here in Colorado. Thank God I have my firearm, but at the same time, I mean, I feel terrible, especially for people who would like to go ahead and defend themselves, who wish to keep themselves protected, and especially when you talk about like the Venezuelan gangs, especially over in Aurora, it even coming to the point where it's like it's not just a minor issue; it's a huge, massive problem, and that's like one of the articles that I saw. I think I think it was the Colorado Sun. I'll have to go ahead and double check on it, but uh, to see how crazy and nutty the um, the landscape, especially around in like in Denver, it is. I mean, like there's Denver, and then there's everywhere else around in Colorado.
Right.
They just scream and go crazy and everything else like that. But then it's just over here, like everywhere else, whether it's from Delta or from Grand Junction or from like Colorado Springs, Steamboat Springs, even like from like even Colorado Springs, like everybody's just quiet. Everybody's just like just doing their own kind of thing, and then Denver's just like looking like they're just losing their minds. Like they're just completely naked and absolutely just running around screaming about something.
Right. Well,
Because that's just how I feel.
yeah. Well, that's kind of the same thing I would say. Like, I've never lived in California, but I've heard the same thing like about California too, where like, you have like large portions of like California that like are more conservative, and they're not like nuts and whatnot. But because you have San Francisco in
And
Los
LA.
Angeles, like these big urban centers that are just like completely nuts, the whole entire state suffers. So, and like also, so like I moved to Florida in 2013. So like I've been gone, for quite a number of years now. But I've heard from some people that like Jared Polis is a moderate, quote unquote. But based on from what I've heard, from like family and friends, like I don't I don't believe that he actually is, from what I've heard.
I don't really think he's well. It depends on how people like feel. I mean, I really didn't like a lot of his economic stuff, and then also his like much more left leaning kind of politics. But that I mean, for like a regular average person in here in just the state, I think. I mean, he isn't great for the outside guy, but but obviously, I think a lot of people in Denver actually really, really like him. Sometimes maybe they might want to have more of that, which I I remember like when he came in, actually he took away a lot of the oil and gas, like well, we voted for more expansion for oil, for natural gas and oil in the state, and then he took it like he said, no more. We can't do that. We're gonna go ahead and like vastly restrict it, and it's really kind of crazy of like why he did that, because I think the vast majority of people actually wanted to have that rather than not have that. Um, and it was citing for like environmental causes and issues. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and I don't want anybody to go ahead and take this as like something official. I mean, Colorado politics is Colorado politics. I mean, it's there, but it just seems like it's very kind of it's very very hard to go ahead and recognize, honestly. And I'm pretty agnostic towards the state level.
Okay, yeah, I was kind of wondering because, like I said, I haven't lived there in a long time, but like I keep hearing different things, about. So
Well,
yeah.
I will say it will be kind of interesting since there will be a I guess from the DOJ is actually investigating over here, probably here soon, especially with the Tina Peters case, especially with that. That's going to be interesting. Um, I think for anybody who doesn't know, uh, Tina Peters was the oh gosh, what was she doing? She did all like the ballots and stuff, especially in 2020, and she kind of affected something. She was kind of scared that some of the companies were actually trying to go ahead and rig the election. There was some crazy stuff that happened over with that. I don't really want to talk a lot about it. I'm still very, very much still kind of trying to feel the air and also like try to have a better informed opinion rather than act like a moron.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Uh, I definitely one thing I hope is that the Colorado GOP can get their acts together, because I know that Colorado has like Lauren Boebert, and she's kind of like one of the big GOP superstars, but I'm not sure if she'd be like, I don't think she's like fringe, per se, but like I know a lot of people in Colorado who do think that she's fringe. That's kind of like her perception. And so like I think like the Colorado GOP needs like a good leader. And again, I'm a former Colorado, and like I'm a full-time Florida man, so so people don't really give a crap about like what my view is, but it seems to me like sure there must be someone like from the Front Range or something that could like do a good job of bringing people together.
For
So
sure. I well, first off, I'd like to say that she was part of my district first, and I'll tell you what, it was pretty nutty to go ahead and see everything like the last couple of years before. Matter of fact, I actually talked to you about 2 years ago when we first started doing like the official thing, and we called her Lauren Boebert.
yeah,
Yes. Um, it was pretty fun to go ahead and see that, and then especially with everything that happened with that, it was kind of funny. Um, but yeah, I think that the Colorado GOP, uh, they have something on the line. I think a lot of people, the vast majority of normal people, and not honestly city folk, are probably looking to be a lot more vocal, especially around this year's in the next midterm elections and everything else like that. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see what'll happen in the state, and I'd like to go ahead and come back and maybe have a couple of your other friends that are from Colorado, and we can talk about it. That'd be kind of cool.
yeah, yeah. I think that would be awesome to do as well at some point. Um, so yeah, I mean Colorado politics. I mean, in just politics in general, we could go on all day about that. Now you also like host Bits and Bones with more. So like, how has that experience been for you? But you've been like hosting for a couple months now, almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, for Bits and Bones, I'd like to go ahead and say I feel terrible for the well for core. Like I was not part of that. I also had like a big problem of when I was first starting like working into a different position in the job that I do now. Uh, I was not there for them, and I was like literally working while these guys were still doing the show, which I felt terrible about doing that. And I could have been a lot more active, and it's been kind of really hard on me to try to do the best that I can to go ahead and be part of the show and be a much more better contributor. Um, my hope is that as time goes by, that I can go ahead and be a little bit more adaptive and actually be a much more higher contributor to the show. It's not like I don't like it or anything like that. I have other stuff, and I'm also busy. I
yeah,
feel
yeah. I
terrible.
mean,
Yeah.
I for one, I don't hold it against you, and I don't think anyone listening does. I mean, shoot, like I've had to take, there were multiple times where I had to take, a hiatus from podcasting in general because I was busy with, college and other stuff and whatnot. Like I don't think it's that unusual. I do think that you are, a good host and, like you have a lot of interesting game insights, too, I think. So
Yeah. Which I mean, I think I'm not much of a video game guy. I mean, I play a couple times here and there, but I think that as time goes by, I mean, like, video games are very much adapting. They're very much more better, and I know that I guess I would say like video games have they're getting away from the AAA scene into more of the double A slash like indie scene, which I'm kind of excited to see because I think good small games that are not very like too crazy and grandiose are actually just something a little bit better. It's like going back to a farmer's market rather than to, the big box store, which is kind of cool. And you're going to get a lot
yeah,
more value out of what you play.
yeah. Well, so when you're not working, and being busy, what does Tim like to do?
Uh, Relax, sleep, and mostly sleep. I mean, I don't get very much of sleep. It's unfortunate. Um,
Yeah, I hear ya.
yeah. So
We could
that
all
oh, go ahead.
we could I was gonna say we could all use more sleep.
Yeah. Well, but for the most part, I've been playing like a little bit of Space Station 14. I've been playing actually Honey Pop. Actually, I got it for free, and that was pretty cool. And then I've got some other things going on. The Wire. I'm gonna see if I can go ahead and play like some other games, uh, and probably just kind of dick around with, especially the computer and stuff. Which I'm kind of excited to just do more of, and especially playing like higher def games.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, well, I think that, I think, you've been doing a great job, contributing when you can, and real appreciate it. And you have a lot of good, you have, I think you have like a, I think you have like a lot of good insights on the political scene too that, I think are pretty similar to mine, but also different enough to where it makes things interesting.
For
So,
sure. Well,
um, so yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it. It's you know, uh, I'd probably say I'm much more of a normie. I became much more of a normie as time has gone by. I'm not chronically aligned, which I'm honestly kind of quite glad of. And I just do my own thing. That's pretty much it. And then I just kind of meet everybody in the middle.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's pretty good. And I mean, I would say the same thing. Like I still am online pretty heavily because I kind of have to be, to promote like the books and the podcast and whatnot. But like I'm more, these days too, which is nice. So, but anyway, Tim, well, thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts? Any thing you'd like to promote or plug
I have
before the
nothing to promote. Honestly, if you guys want to go ahead and watch Bits and Motes, it's going to be Sundays at 8 o'clock my time or 10 o'clock Eastern. If you guys want to go ahead and watch it, please do. Uh, that would be really. It's a good little show. We're just talking about gaming. We talk a little bit about tabletop gaming. We talk a little bit about more video games, of course. Which honestly, one of these days, I would like to go ahead and do a tabletop game, and then we'll go ahead and have that live, which will be kind of cool. I know that Max has OSR, old school rules, so we'll figure something out with that.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. And then, just honestly, if you guys could go ahead and buy the books on Sam's for Sam's books. Actually, when is your next book gonna come out?
My next book is coming out on the 25th of March.
That's exciting.
So yeah, in just a few weeks here. And in fact, we're recording this on a Saturday, even though it will air on Monday. During that day, I'll be doing like final edits,
Ooh,
from before I publish.
that's exciting.
Pretty pretty exciting. It's my fourth time doing this. Like I kind of know what to expect, but still, it is exciting and whatnot.
For sure.
And
Well,
people can follow you at ancap Are you a doc? So I take it you're a Doctor Who fan.
yes. I mean, okay, so my whole thing of doing the whole ANCAP Dalek thing was, as a kid, I watched Doctor Who, of course, and it was interesting. It was fun to listen to. It was kind of fun to watch because my stepfather was a big old turbo nerd. Um, he liked a lot of Battlestar Galactica. He liked a lot of Stargate. He liked, of course, regular Star Trek and everything else like that. That was a lot of fun to watch as a kid. And then we watched the David Tennant version of Doctor Who. I watched a lot of the episodes. They were kind of cool. And then, I saw a lot of these people that had, their political thing of, Democrat Dalek or Republican Dalek. And then there was, some different ones of each one. Just kind of it was very kind of quite interesting. And then I just kind of said, okay, I'll just go ahead and do it for myself. And that's just how it went. And I said, all right, let me go ahead and make an ANCAP version. And then that's how it kind of fit in.
Interesting. Interesting. So are you a science fiction? Are you still a science fiction fan at all, or do you follow that much? Or
I still do. I like sci. I do love sci-fi. I think that sci-fi. I do kind of miss the original version of well, how do I say it the best way? I kind of miss the whole Flash Gordon kind of style of sci-fi. I
yeah,
really
the
do.
yeah
Yeah,
the pulpy
I like pulp. I
sci-fi.
like pulp sci-fi, and that's why I've kind of really want to go ahead and try Traveler and stuff like that. I think it's a great setting, and honestly, I'll probably figure something out for that too, because it's just so cool. And if anybody's ever never heard of Traveler, go ahead and check it out. It is awesome, and you can make anything in the world, any pulp sci-fi or even regular sci-fi. I think that it's just an amazing a setting to just work around, and also you can make your own thing. So I'd recommend it.
So that's Traveler that you're playing then. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, Tim, it was great having you on, and feel free to come back anytime, and we'd love to have you on. And thanks everyone who tuned in for today's edition of the program. And we'll be back on Wednesday with Max and Mortheous, and I'm sure we'll be
Possibly Shmuley.
covering even more crazy news. Shmuley doesn't pop on as much, but yeah, I mean he's always welcome as well. So yeah, Shmuley's a busy man doing busy Shmuley things.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but well, anyway, folks, we'll talk to you down the road, and yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you Wednesday. Peace.
The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Thank you for watching the Whitfield Report live on the Right to Offend Media Network. Make sure to check out Sam's books on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. You can follow Sam on X at SamW_NGC and the Right to Offend Media Network at RTO Media. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And until next time, God bless, God save this great nation. God, freedom, legacy, in that order.